Next on the docket, suing the Saudis. President Obama recently vetoed a bill that would allow 9/11 families to sue Saudi officials, as some of them believe the Saudis were involved. It also allows Americans to sue other foreign governments over terror attacks on U.S. soil. Now, just today, Congress, well, they overrode the veto, and they did it in overwhelming fashion. The Senate voted 97-1. I don't think they vote 97-1 if the sun's shining, but they did today. And with only Harry Reid siding with the president, the House vote, it also overwhelmingly 348-77. The president says this could expose U.S. companies, troops, and officials to lawsuits. And Jimmy, I'll start with you. If you had a vote today in the House or the Senate, would you have voted to override the veto, or would you have supported the president?
I would have voted to override the veto. I mean, you know, if there's been over the last years, you know, for how many years have people sought and organizations sought the release of the documents that the government had in its possession, which purportedly show there was Saudi involvement in those attacks? And, you know, it is going to open up many, many, many cans of worms. There is going to be litigation, and there's going to be constant battles over national security, what should be disclosed, what should not be disclosed, and I think it's going to be a colossal, colossal mess, especially if the discovery process shows that there was Saudi involvement
and you still think
and the
they should do
government
it.
knew. Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
Doug, I can say there was a drone attack that killed 60 Syrians, U.S. launched, okay? Why can't I make the extrapolation that every time there's a mistake that we were involved in, that whether it's unspoken or otherwise, this is now the new Rubicon, that now all of a sudden we're going to see people suing us, we're going to see people, foreign governments suing, you know, our corporations, our individuals here. Have we made Americans less safe abroad as a consequence about what happened today?
See, I don't know about that. I mean, that's the argument you have, but the fact of the matter is you have a situation, they're talking about Saudi Arabia, the government being involved in this. That's what you're talking about here.
And an act of terrorism.
Which is a very limited sort of thing. Now, will that happen? Will there be other countries that retaliate? I guess that's true. I guess there'll be retaliatory litigation. But you can't ignore the fact that this happened, and you can't ignore the fact that these families have a right to bring lawsuits against somebody that is complicit in the deaths of their family members.
Nobody disagreed. Well, 15 of the 19 attackers, they were of Saudi origin. It has long been believed, even though through the redacted reports that Jimmy was referencing, we don't know definitively, but that money certainly fueled this, and even the bin Ladens have obviously Saudi ties here. The family did. So I get it. I'm just not sure, and I'm not trying to waffle here. I really don't know what kind of Pandora's box this opens. Give me the downside, Mayo, about where we may turn around and say, oh, well, I wanted justice for these 9/11 families, but I didn't want this. Give me an idea what could happen.
Well, either you're in favor of the truth and justice or you're not. And that means that your government should be transparent, should be honest with us. And we have to be willing to pay the consequences going forward. So if, in fact, we're engaged in wrongdoing, for instance, President Obama just went to Laos and apologized for dropping cluster bombs, which are like toys and candy, on the people of Laos, even though we were not at war with the people of Laos, and most Americans are unaware of that conflict. In theory, the government of Laos would be able to sue the United States government for all of the harms that have occurred. And every day there's still unexploded ordnance in Laos where children are walking on beaches and lose limbs or die. And that's a consequence we have to be willing to deal with. But I also think that when we talk about responsibility and accountability on an international scale, you have to be willing to pay that consequence, and hopefully that makes countries look at better decisions going forward.
But in times of war, and also in times of non-stated war, it's shades of gray, Mayo.
Well,
it's not black and white.
An unstated war is illegal. So you have to have a legal war. If you don't have a legality for the war itself, then the entire war itself is a crime.
So could the Pakistanis sue us because we went on their soil to kill bin Laden?
Well, possibly, actually, yes, they could. And here's the other issue, though.
But just think about what you're saying.
Well, if we're engaged in war acts, and there's no declared war, in theory, some of our officials, presidents, Congress, may be facing war crimes as well. As well as some of our soldiers.
But there's a
it's not risk
between,
with lines and different, you know, I mean.
No, and I'm not saying it doesn't come with some risk, but there is a difference between the casualties of war and the effects of an actual war and an outright act of unmitigated terrorism
be
that
declared
is
a war. If it's not a war,
sponsored by another country. Now, if Saudi Arabia had its hands in the 9/11 attacks, there is no fine line.
But step this out with me. First of all, Saudi royal families, whether or not they're one and the same with the Saudi government, certainly can make that argument. I'm not being naive. But to clearly prove, well, the government sanctioned this, or some, emir, or some...
But that's what litigation is about.
Yes.
You still have to prove it.
But now think it extends to us. And now think it's some other kangaroo court in some other country, okay? We believe in the U.S. justice system. Can you imagine you go to court in Venezuela because they think that, oil rigging did something wrong and destroyed a community, and they're going to do their kangaroo justice and they'll decide? I mean, we don't, you guys know this better than me. Not every court system is unimpeachable, warts and all as ours.
There's no prohibition against people from another country suing in the United States for negligent acts that occur by the United States or companies in the United States.
What if they want to do it on foreign courts there?
Well, but if you go to another country and you do something and commit negligence that results in fatalities or damage, there's no prohibition in existence right now.
What we're talking about right now is this will open the door and shed light on why we went to war in Iraq, and there may be absolutely no reason, and we may find that members of our government intentionally misled the American people. So now if you are a citizen of Iraq, you have a cause of action against the United States.
But how does this differ from the Kaplan case, where there was a lawsuit of another country for acts committed?
Well, that's because this overriding the veto here will open the floodgates to other countries doing the same. That's why.
The reality is the United States has a very strong military, and the reason that this probably isn't happening all over the world right now is because that they know that if you take American citizens and you take away their things and you put them in danger, the military of the U.S. government will step in. And that's probably the only reason it's not happening now.
And also, there's been an unspoken thing that we haven't done this to other nations as well. And now, if all of a sudden this is removed, where is the disincentive? We shall follow it, but nonetheless here, it is the first time the president has seen this. All right, coming up next, the debate over the fatal police shooting in Charlotte continues. When is it justified for an officer to shoot someone? Now, we've had this debate, but I'm going to give you the specific particulars. I'm going to see 3 attorneys at the table if they think some of the information that's come to light can maybe create a line here that we can understand when it is and isn't right to do so. Stay with us.